On the 14th of August, 1989, Gabrielle Lavallée came out of the forest near Burnt River, Ontario, carrying the remains of her right arm against her body and searching for a road to a hospital. She had escaped the wooden compound behind her before. This time, returning was impossible. Weeks earlier, Roch Thériault had driven a knife through her hand and into a table, then decided the injured arm had to be removed. Lavallée remained conscious through the amputation because, as she later told police, she feared that if she fainted, the people around her might assume she was dead and do something worse. The scene appears to be the final act of an isolated madman. It was not. Theriault's followers had once joined him to stop smoking, study the Bible, feed the poor, and seek a more meaningful life. The Anthill Kids did not begin with violence in the wilderness. It began with a promise that suffering could be purified. To understand how that promise became obedience, the story must pass through a failed apocalypse, a mountain renamed as sacred ground, a prison sentence that did not break the community, and rituals in which healing and punishment became almost impossible to separate. Roch Thériault was born in Quebec in 1947. Accounts of a childhood marked by illness and violence do not always agree. What is documented is that he left school after the 7th grade, worked as a carpenter, suffered serious stomach problems, and developed an intense fascination with medicine. In early 1977, he encountered the Seventh-day Adventist Church. Its emphasis on health, discipline, Bible study, and the approaching end of the age gave him a structure that the Catholicism of his childhood had not. He stopped drinking and smoking, studied the Old Testament and the Book of Revelation, and proved unusually effective at speaking to converts. Adventist leaders allowed him to teach 5-day courses designed to help people quit smoking. The sessions combined encouragement, natural foods, strict routines, and a sense of shared struggle. Participants were not being invited into a torture camp. They were being offered mastery over a habit many had failed to defeat alone. Several early followers were young adults preparing for college or trade school. Others came through grief, illness, or a search for direction. Jacques Chiguer and Maurice Grenier joined after a family death. Leo-Marc Fauché joined after Theriault helped him stop smoking, donated several $1,000s, and moved in with his family. Long Bible studies and communal meals produced rapid intimacy. Members called Theriault Poppy and Giselle Lafrance Mommy. The group opened the Healthy Living Clinic in Sainte-Marie-de-Beauce. It sold health foods, ran anti-smoking sessions, and held vegetarian meals for poor or sick people. These activities established Theriault as a healer. At first, relatives were welcome. The system had not yet closed. But the clinic offered more than health advice. It offered an explanation for weakness. A cigarette became evidence of contamination. Disagreement revealed attachment to an impure world. Group confession placed private failings before the community and made Theriault the person who interpreted what each failure meant. The man who helped members stop smoking was becoming the man who decided which parts of them required correction. By the spring of 1978, the approaching apocalypse dominated his teaching. Theriault instructed followers to sever ties with their parents. Gabrielle Lavallée later recalled telling her mother that the world produced gangrene and that separation was necessary to approach God. New arrivals were asked whether ordinary society could offer their children more than the community could. Family represented corruption. Isolation represented protection. In July, the group traveled to undeveloped land in the Gaspé Peninsula. They built cabins beneath a mountain they called Mont de l'Eternal, the Mountain of Eternity, and renamed themselves the Holy Moses Mountain Family. On the 15th of September, members drew new biblical names from slips of paper. Birth names began to disappear. Theriault became Moise, Moses, the prophet who had led them to a promised land. They adopted a modified Hebrew calendar, new holidays, and tunics meant to symbolize equality. None of these practices alone explains what followed. Religious communities can change names, clothing, and calendars without becoming violent. The danger lay in who controlled every meaning. Theriault did. Then, an event outside the mountain changed how outsiders saw them. On the 18th of November 1978, more than 900 people died at Jonestown in Guyana. Canadian reporters compared the mountain community to Jim Jones's People's Temple, although no comparable violence had yet been documented there. Theriault was evaluated and released. Examiners described mystical delusions, but did not consider him dangerous. The attention gave him a useful enemy. Parents, police, journalists, and psychiatrists could be presented as agents of the world he had declared impure. Every attempt to remove a follower became proof of persecution. Outsiders believed they were opening a door. Inside, the same door became a trap. The promised end of the world was set for the 17th of February, 1979. The date arrived. Nothing. A failed prophecy might appear fatal to a prophet's authority, but failure can strengthen a closed system when the leader alone controls the explanation. Theriault argued that divine time had been misunderstood and that 1 second in the life of God could equal decades on Earth. The prediction had not been false. Human calculation had been inadequate. If the apocalypse could be postponed without weakening belief, then evidence no longer had the power to remove him from the center of the system. Parents obtained court orders. Police arrived. In April, officers removed Chantal Labrie for psychiatric examination and arrested Theriault for obstructing justice. With him absent, the provincial government transported concerned parents to the remote commune by helicopter. Family after family asked their adult children to leave. None did. This is often described as proof that Theriault hypnotized them. The surviving evidence points to a more ordinary mechanism. Their old relationships had been weakened. Their confessions were known. Their money, work, marriages, religious identities, and fear of the outside world had become concentrated inside one community. Leaving meant admitting that sacrifice, estrangement, and ridicule might have been endured for nothing. Both were released after psychiatric assessments. He returned to the mountain. The prophecy had failed, the police had intervened, and the parents had arrived. Yet the group remained. What looked like a crisis had demonstrated the strength of his control. During the next 2 years, equality gave way to hierarchy. Theriault recast the commune as a medieval court. He was the king. Giselle Lafrance was the queen. Members were divided between the pure and the impure. The distinction could change according to his mood. A rule that can be understood may be followed. A rule that changes without warning forces everyone to watch the ruler. Punishments became routine. According to survivor accounts, sleeping during a sermon could bring a beating. Theriault sometimes ordered members to attack one person and then comfort the same person afterward. The group became both the source of pain and the only available source of relief. In November of 1980, Guy Vere arrived after leaving psychiatric treatment for depression. He was assigned the status of slave and placed in charge of children classified as impure. In March of the following year, 2-year-old Samuel Giguère was injured while in Vere's care. The precise sequence was disputed, but the version later accepted in court held that Vere had beaten the child for crying. Samuel's condition deteriorated. Theriault, assisted by Lavallée, attempted a crude medical intervention. The child died the next morning. Several months later, Theriault convened a group trial and declared that Vere should be castrated as punishment. Adult members voted, along with Theriault's 12-year-old son. Theriault performed the operation, then announced that Vere's rank had risen from slave to eunuch. Vere escaped in November, and at first told police very little. Only after further contact did investigators obtain enough information to act. Police raided the commune in December of 1981. Theriault and 3 followers were charged over Samuel's death, Vere's castration, and child neglect. 7 children were taken into protective care. The others were expelled from the mountain. In September of 1982, the defendants were convicted. Theriault received 2 years less a day. The arrests should have ended the system. Instead, they revealed that it no longer required his physical presence. Members moved into apartments near one another. LaFrance maintained the hierarchy. Theriault telephoned from prison and wrote a memoir presenting himself as a natural healer. His account conflicted with other testimony. Samuel's death was placed entirely on Vere. The castration, he claimed, had been requested. This was the conversion of crime into sacred biography. A leader who can rewrite the past can return from punishment not as a disgraced man, but as a persecuted prophet. Theriault was released in February of 1984 and moved the group across the provincial border, beyond the direct authority of Quebec child protection officials. On the 2nd of May, 3 men, 9 women, and 10 children began building houses, a sawmill, and a sugar shack near Burnt River. The group adopted its notorious name, the Anthill Kids. It referred to relentless collective work, people moving through the compound like ants around a mound. Popular accounts describe the Anthill Kids as a fully formed doomsday cult created in 1977. The history is less simple. The name appeared later, the doctrine changed repeatedly, and the early health mission was real. What persisted was Theriault's authority to transform the theology whenever reality threatened it. Life in Ontario was precarious. The land was poor, and money and food were scarce. Members received welfare, sold baked goods, accepted help from neighbors, and sometimes stole supplies. Theriault controlled relationships and took multiple wives. His revelations carried more weight than medicine, law, or parental protection. In December of 1985, an older child ran away and was found by police. Ontario's Children's Aid Society removed 14 children. Social workers later removed additional babies born there. The intervention protected the children, but left the adults more sealed with the man who described every loss as persecution. The violence escalated, increasingly disguised as treatment. Illness gave Theriault an opportunity to prove divine authority. If a follower recovered, his power was confirmed. If the follower worsened, impurity, disobedience, or insufficient faith could be blamed. The healer could not fail. Only the patient could. In September of 1988, Solange Boilard, then his primary wife, complained of abdominal pain. Theriault performed a crude operation. She died from the injuries. According to testimony and later research, parts of her remains were then used in rituals intended first to restore her and later to preserve her presence. Members were forced to wear fragments as amulets. Many retellings present this as evidence that the group had always practiced an ancient occult religion. It had not. The rituals were improvised after a death Theriault had caused. Biblical names, Adventist health practices, medieval hierarchy, folk healing, and private sexual symbolism were combined without a stable inherited tradition. Their authority came from him, not from antiquity. Solange's death created a secret that bound the adults together. To expose Theriault was also to expose what they had witnessed, assisted, concealed, or endured. Shared guilt can become a wall stronger than shared belief. Behind that wall, Gabrielle Lavallée was repeatedly assaulted and subjected to his medical obsessions. She escaped more than once. Each time, she returned. In court, she later said that Theriault promised to address his drinking. Her return has sometimes been used to suggest consent or irrational devotion. It reveals something else. After more than a decade inside the group, returning meant returning to the only identity, family structure, spiritual language, and daily order she had been permitted to keep. Abuse had not erased attachment. It had been woven into it. In November of 1988, Theriault pulled several teeth from the wrong side of her mouth. Lavallée fled for treatment, then went back. In July of 1989, he drove a knife through her hand and into a wooden table. She remained pinned there for more than half an hour. Later, he declared that the damaged arm had to be removed and used a dull kitchen blade before completing the amputation with a heavier instrument. Other members were present. Some assisted. The community that had promised to heal dependency had reached the point where obedience required participation in another person's destruction. On the 14th of August, Lavallée left again. This time she reached medical care and gave authorities a statement. Police searched the property. Theriault escaped into the bush, but was captured with several followers in October. At a hearing, he and 3 others insisted on pleading guilty, despite advice to seek independent lawyers. Collective obedience continued inside the courtroom. Theriault received 12 years for the assaults on Lavallée. Investigators recovered Solange Boilard's remains from the abandoned commune. In 1993, he pleaded guilty to second-degree murder and was sentenced to life imprisonment. The commune ended, but some women continued to regard him as their spiritual husband and maintained contact in prison. Roch Thériault died in Dorchester Penitentiary in New Brunswick on the 26th of February 2011 after another prisoner attacked him. His death ended any return to the wilderness. It did not explain why people had stayed. The explanation is not that the followers were uniquely foolish, nor that hypnosis removed their will. Control accumulated through smaller transfers. A teacher interpreted weakness. A healer interpreted pain. A prophet interpreted time. A father figure interpreted family loyalty. A king interpreted purity. Eventually, the person who caused suffering also became the only person authorized to explain it. Gabrielle Lavallée's most revealing act was not that she survived an amputation. It was that she kept walking after the forest opened. She carried years of fear, complicity, hope, and injury toward a world she had been taught was diseased. The group had promised that isolation would protect believers from corruption. In the end, outside contact allowed the truth to escape. The compound near Burnt River is no longer a sacred refuge, and the date of the apocalypse passed decades ago. But the central ritual was never the calendar, the tunics, the biblical names, or the fragments worn around the neck. It was the surrender of interpretation itself. Once one person was permitted to decide what every illness, doubt, punishment, and failed prophecy meant, almost any contradiction could be turned into proof. On an August morning, a woman emerged from the trees and refused that meaning. The road ahead promised neither purity nor certainty. It only led back to other people. She took it anyway.